Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this listening session. I'm Jaylee Schultz, Deputy Executive Director for the State Board of Education. We're excited to hear your thoughts on what students need to be ready for life after high school. Your input will help shape the board's work to update graduation requirements. Before we dive in, let's go over a few housekeeping items. The focus of this session is to hear from you all. We'll briefly cover some background information and then turn our attention to discussion questions. We'll be using a combination of whole group discussion, breakout rooms for small group discussion, and on-screen polls. This will include Zoom polls, Padlet for note-taking, and a Menti word cloud. If those tools are unfamiliar to you, no worries. We'll provide instructions along the way. If you run into any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature to ask for help, and we'll do our best to assist you. During the discussion, we'd love for participants to come off mute and speak, and you can also use the chat feature to share your thoughts and questions. The slide deck and a recording of this session will be shared with all registrants afterwards. We'll be recording the entire session, including the small group discussions, to make sure we capture your thoughts. So this is the State Board staff team who are helping facilitate the listening session. Bolton's running our Zoom, and then when we do small groups, we'll have 2 staff people in each breakout room to help facilitate the discussion and take notes. Before we dive in, I'd like to share a little information about the State Board of Education. We're a 16-member policy board supported by a small staff of 12. Our members bring a wide range of perspectives and include 2 student members who provide critical insights from the learner's perspective, the superintendent of public instruction, a representative of private schools, 5 members elected by school board directors from across the state, and 7 members appointed by the governor. As a policy board, our primary role is to shape policies and advocate for the state's K-12 public education system. Our mission is to cultivate an equitable and inclusive K-12 education system that fulfills our vision of every student being empowered with the knowledge and skills they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world. This mission guides all of our work, from collaborating with partners to developing policy to advocating for transformative change. In addition to the board's broad advocacy and oversight role, we also focus on specific policy areas, with one of the most notable being graduation requirements. The FutureReady initiative sits squarely within the board's statutory authority. Under state law, we are responsible for establishing graduation requirements, periodically reevaluating them, and proposing changes to the state legislature. This process of review and improvement is a regular part of the board's duties and helps ensure that graduation requirements remain relevant, equitable, and aligned with the needs of Washington students and communities. When we talk about graduation requirements, we are referring to all 3 components of the state's graduation requirement framework. That includes the high school and beyond plan, the planning tool that helps students identify their interests, set goals, and choose courses and activities. It also includes the credit and subject area requirements of our 24 credit framework, and it includes the graduation pathway options, or different ways that students can show readiness for their individual goals for after high school. These 3 components are intended to work together to signal that a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment, civic engagement, and lifelong learning. Before we go any further, it's important to emphasize that the board is not proposing any changes to graduation requirements at this time. Instead, the board has launched the process for doing the review and developing recommendations. The board is in the early stages of this process and aims to engage authentically with partners in developing the proposal. So we're starting with the issues and questions to explore rather than beginning with predetermined changes in mind. This initiative is multi-year, leading to the development of a comprehensive legislative proposal for the 27 legislative session. Importantly, any changes that come out of this work will be phased in to support thoughtful and effective implementation. We are currently at the front end of this process in phase 1, where we are starting off by developing a shared vision for what the diploma should signify in terms of readiness for success. This shared vision will lay the foundation for the more detailed policy work to come. If you'd like to learn more or stay involved in the FutureReady initiative, We'd encourage you to check out the links on this slide to access handouts, sign up for updates, and fill out our interest form, which will help us tailor upcoming engagement opportunities. There's also a recording of the previous informational webinar that shares more information about the approach to the initiative. All right, so thank you for bearing with us as we set the stage. Before we launch into discussion, we'd like to understand who is in the room with us, where this helps us, this helps us understand who's in the room, where you're coming from, and the perspectives that you bring. The poll questions should have popped up on your screen, and while we're running those, we'd also encourage you to introduce yourself in chat. So feel free to share why you're interested in FutureReady. We'd love to hear what brought you here today. And in a moment, when we close the polls, we'll share the results on screen for all to see. Okay, in just a moment, we'll close the poll. So if you're wanting to participate, wrapping up shortly here. Okay, are they sharing on screen now? Okay, thanks, Colton. Okay, so for who is in the room, it looks like our largest proportion are school personnel at 41%. Thanks so much for taking time after your workday to join us for this. We've also got a student from K-12, so that is exciting. Happy to have student voice. Parents and guardians as well at 24%. Folks representing community-based or advocacy organizations, and a state agency partner. So thank you all, and a few others as well. For race ethnicity, being a smaller group tonight, we have mostly white and Black or African American participation. This information helps us know where to target our outreach efforts, so we appreciate you taking the time to answer. And in what region of Washington? Mostly Puget Sound here, 80% Puget Sound and 20% Eastern Washington. And how much people have heard about FutureReady? Sounds like 80% have heard of it, but don't know much about the details yet. And one is first time hearing about it. So thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's session to learn more. Okay. So moving along now, we're about to go into our discussion questions here, and we just want to set the stage with the focus around setting the vision for what our diploma is intended to signify. So as a foundation for that, looking at the purpose in state law, according to state law, the purpose of a high school diploma is to declare that a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment, civic engagement, and is equipped with the skills to be a lifelong learner. And so I put that emphasis on the words ready for success in statute, and yet we know that what success means differs for different people and communities, and also what it means to be ready for success can vary depending on students' unique experiences, goals, and available opportunities. So before we can determine how graduation requirements should change, we first need to clarify our shared vision of what the diploma should signify. So that leads us to our first set of discussion questions for our session. We're about to break into small groups here. And I think we'll do 2 groups looking at this. And We will be opening up Padlet. There are links here. You can go use the link in chat to open up the Padlet if you're able to, or you can use this QR code and use your phone camera to access it. And we would encourage you to enter your thoughts there, but you'll also be chatting about it in your small group. And the staff can also assist with entering your notes. So if you run into any technology issues or challenges, just let staff know. You can put your thoughts in chat or say them out loud, and we're happy to enter them into the Padlet for you. So the first discussion question is describe what you believe are the qualities of a successful life. And then, so that's intended to be really wide open and broad because we're starting from the vision and we know the diploma is supposed to signal readiness for success. So let's start with, well, what is success? So from there, we'll go more specifically looking at hopes and aspirations for students after high school. What do you hope they know and can do as they step into the next stage of life? And what do you hope they feel confident about? Just as a preview for what's coming next, you'll be in your small group discussing defining success. What does success mean? And then we'll come back together and talk about it as a whole group. And then there will be another round where we will dive into what does readiness mean. And there's some overlap here, but just letting you know what's coming so that this part of the discussion can focus more on the question of what is success. And then hold some of your thoughts for the second part where we start diving into what is readiness. So from here, we will launch into those small groups.
I'm just gonna go ahead. Do you all have the palette open?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's start off with the first question. Again, we're trying to really define what success means. And so trying to see what do you all think about the qualities of a successful life?
I think a successful life is really dependent on the person. I think that having a concept of who you are and what makes you comfortable and safe is an extremely important aspect to it. So, students needing to know what they want to do and then having a pathway to follow that follows into that, but also having a sense of things that make them feel safe and secure, things that make them feel comfortable and give them purpose beyond just a job. um, Particularly if the job that they choose is not one that is necessarily fulfilling, or the job they end up with is not one that is necessarily fully fulfilling to them.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead. There's no order, so you don't have to raise your hand. Just it's very, we want to make sure that everyone gets to participate. So go ahead and Deb.
Right. I believe that a confident person with skills and knowledge can become self-sufficient and make judgments, can react responsibly and appropriately to the various challenges and uh, opportunities that arise in life. In the late 1970s, I became a power plant operator for Puget Power, for example. I never expected to take a blue collar job in my life, but I had had an excellent education, including physics and math. And it was very easy for me to adapt to blue collar work. I haven't worked in blue collar. I've been a professional, I've been a manager, but I had the skills and I had the knowledge to follow various dreams, uptake different opportunities, had a very varied career. And I'm now retired, but during the years, I coached math. I helped young people in many ways. And now I'm an elected official, and I'm very concerned about the quality of education. Uh, making, I find young people often quite anxious, the concern about feeling safe, people who are not confident, who don't feel that they're sailing their own ship, seem to be more anxious and less likely to fulfill a really rich life. And I'm in my 70s, so I'm speaking with considerable experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. And it is we have heard from other community members and also on our earlier session about the importance of really incorporating and providing a lot more different opportunities and options to students when it comes to after high school graduation, whether that might be like a 4 year or that might be trades in community college and all of those options. So thank you for those thoughts, Deb. Anyone else? What else? So let's move on to also the next question.
Oh,
Um,
Lillian. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, are you sorry, Jaylee, do you wanna?
Oh no, I was just taking a peek. Is would it be helpful at all if I share my view of the Padlet, or is everyone have it? If anyone would find that helpful, let me know, or we can assume you're all looking at it on your end. We'd also encourage you if you're reading through and looking at other people's responses, if you can go ahead and heart them if you want to like the comment or it resonates with you. You can also leave a comment or a question on each other's responses. So feel free to react to other comments that are in there. And you'll see from the other group ideas coming over as well.
Great, thank you, Jaylee. So moving on to the next question, we're moving to hopes and aspirations. What can students know and can do? What do you all think about any hopes and aspirations of students? And also maybe you can think of what do you think they should feel confident about?
I think that perhaps anything that they have a strength in, um, if they have a strength in math or English, any maybe perhaps speaking, public speaking, any of those things that can be highlighted during their high school years or even in the middle school years would be great.
I agree with Lisa on that. People should find out what they're skilled at or what they're passionate about and use it going forward. You can make a living doing almost anything. You can be successful. But you have to believe in yourself. You have to have hopes. You have to have aspirations. Um, and I don't feel like a lot of kids these days have confidence in themselves. And that's something I work at a high school. That's something I know we're working on at our school. Because if they have that, they can go far if they have belief in themselves.
I would agree with that. I think with skills and knowledge, uh, that I think that's the basis, a solid understanding of uh, just basic math, basic geography, language skills, and so on are really critical. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure put on kids. Kids are not mature. They may not be aware of all their talents at the age of 10 or 12 or 16. And I find some of the life planning exercises a little stressful. I've talked to kids that are involved in programs and they've actually find quite a bit of pressure in having to make life plans, even planning for college or uh, professional skills training, CTE, that sort of thing. They're not ready to make those decisions. And there have been, I know a number of cases where there have been misfits. Kids ended up spending a few years in a technical institute, for example, and then went back to academics and actually followed an academic track when originally they thought that becoming a machinist or or some other thing is very appealing as a child. But I think I'm a little concerned about too much life planning too early in the stage, uh, in the even middle school. Those kids are still developing. They didn't even know what all their talents are. I took up, I didn't begin to play piano till my 40s,
Yep.
till I was in my 40s. And I found out that I actually was a terrible pianist, but I was a good learner. And with practice, I could perfect that skill. But I had no idea as a 15 or 16-year-old where my life would lead me. Thanks.
I think piggybacking on that, the idea of having a lot of options and a lot of knowledge base is a good thing for kids to have so that they know kind of a broad strokes of what they're good at and what they would enjoy doing. Not trying to put words in your mouth, Deb, just kind of piggybacking on my own thoughts off of that. And I think that includes having concepts of what they enjoy beyond just the academic side of things. I think knowing ahead, like particularly if somebody wants to go into a technical school, knowing ahead that that is an important thing, I think is a good thing to have. I think emphasizing or understanding like what the college process looks like more, so kids are a little bit armored against some of the stuff that happens in college. So knowing that going to a junior college could help get rid of some of that cost and some of that stuff ahead of time and give them time to think ahead to what they want to do. So they're not just having to make a decision right away.
Thank you, Sean. Lisa, I saw you unmuted. Would you like to share something?
Well, I have to say that my son was high functioning autistic and he did graduate many years ago. I do volunteer at Ferndale High School with the vet science team, however. And what I see is when kids are joining a group, if you can build them up and find whether it's during the vet science team, whether it's public speaking they're good at or math that they're good at, but build them up in the areas that they are strong in while supporting them in the areas that they have challenges. And so I'm kind of in the area where I believe in ability learning versus just age based classes. My son was very gifted in math. He is a computer software engineer now, and he had a STEM uh, scholarship when he graduated, and then worked 5 years in this state after that to help pay back in taxes. So he actually started at the community college at 13 because he had gone through all of the math classes offered at public school. So, I'm really strong in believing in ability classes. So maybe testing to see where they're at, if they're interested, allowing parents to let you know if the kids are bored in a class, because that gets misbehavior. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Let me say, I want to add, I think this is very important. There are kids that can become very entertained with the arts and other things, and they think that's going to be their career when they're young. And I think there's education as uh, something that people can be attracted to certain charming things, and um, they may want to feel that they belong in all these other things, but they may get to the end of the road and find that they missed the basic math, they may have missed the history, they may have missed the kind of solid things, the background, the foundational things that would help them discover other skills as well. I was an advanced placement person in the 50s and 60s at Carnegie in Pittsburgh, and I graduated. I had a BS at the age of 18, two majors, and both a BF. I had a BFA and a BS.
So I'd welcome if anybody would like to share what they're typing in here or thinking about. And again, Anna and I can take notes as you all engage in conversation with one another about what you think are qualities of a successful life. And you can also be filling in the other two columns around hopes and aspirations for students around what they know and can do and what they'll move through life feeling confident about.
As I'm reading through these on the qualities of success, I'm seeing the confidence has come up more than once, like a student being confident in their skill set, it looks like, moving forward. Would anyone like to share their thoughts or reflections on the qualities of a successful life for a student?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. So, um, I I've had a couple different things in my brain, but I've been having a hard time actually figuring out how to put it into words. But the biggest thing that I think of is having the critical thinking skills to analyze all of the different input that we're getting all day, every day, and the base knowledge to be able to apply in that critical thinking so that they can then interpret what they're seeing from a lens of facts. Um, and so I feel like that's a big component, but that also, I would say, pairs with the academic side of it, because I don't actually consider that to be an academic base. I would say the academic base is I know what, like how the world works. I've, taken the biology class. I know the financial knowledge that I need for functioning in society. Um, in my role, I do a lot of work with helping high school students figure out their post-high school career options and pathways. And it's amazing how many of our students will never be offered information about financial stuff or how taxes work or what is insurance or these basic components of our society. And so I would love to see more students versed in that information.
Yeah. What about hopes and aspirations? What do we hope and aspire?
I'm Adrienne Givens, and I marked that survey wrong. I am not a student. I meant to put I'm an employee at school. So there is no student in this group. Raising 5 children, so I've been down through that, the grandmother now, and I teach. My aspiration for my children was what, like he said, critical thinking, to be able to be a problem solver, to be able to be independent, to make choices, to know how to seek for answers. But that would lead into, having a career that you have passion for, that's fulfilling, to be able to form good relationships, healthy relationships, and to be a positive influence on my community, and to have a home that where I'm comfortable. And nowadays, some of that is getting almost impossible for our younger people to obtain. One thing is they don't know about financial, like Donovan said, I had to look at your name. The financials that is out there, what there's ways around things that people don't even know. And I think the way I've raised my children, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know or how to find this out. Thank you.
You.
Sorry about that. It took me a minute to find like a little place. I am a student. I'm working on this project and I thought um I saw your website and heard like from around the place that you guys were working on changing the school curriculum. So I was really interested in that. So on to the first question. I think one of the things that just recently, I don't know, 2 years ago, being out of high school, I thought was like really important to having a successful life was knowing or at least having options of what you're able to do and that you're passionate about. Because I feel like success comes in a lot of different ways, but as long as there's options, opportunities that are given to you, that are accessible, that are available, and that you have like actionable feelings about, then that leads to a more successful like place and where you want to be. And yeah, I didn't have time to think about the second question. I was rushing to find a place and doing homework. So yeah, that's all I got for now.
So much for sharing. So we spoke a little bit about what they know and can do. What about like how they feel and what they feel confident about knowing? I think we kind of touched on everything all together, but was there anything anyone wanted to add?
I would just kind of, pulling from my earlier comment, that they should feel confident that the things society is going to tell them they have to do, that they at least know what they are and that they know how to navigate those elements. Because if they can't feel confident in the things that they don't get a choice in, all that's going to do is create additional stresses in their life that complicate further things down the road.
Thank you
When you
for
talk
your
about being confident in like the things I don't know society expects you to do after high school, what specifically do you mean? Because I never yet really like got any like direction into like what exactly is expected from my high school education. So I was just curious, like, what do you see happening in the education and what do you think has the opportunity to be there, but is just never explored?
Uh, is that question targeted to me?
I mean, it's tar anyone can answer, but like, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I got that question from you, so yeah, if you feel
Yeah,
like
so
answering.
so I actually one of the events that I've coordinated through my career here is an event that we call Adulting 101 at one of the local high schools. We brought in someone that can speak on taxes and somebody from the local People's Bank branch and the local State Farm insurance agent. And we had juniors and seniors were given the opportunity for this. And a little over half of the eligible students participated it was an elective choice for 1 day, 1 hour. Um, and just about half of the eligible students opted for this over apprenticeship information, over financial aid information, over all this because one of the biggest stressors that they're seeing is they know that taxes are going to exist. They know that these things are there, but no one has talked to them about it. And a lot of times the financial information that schools do offer is tied up in something like a financial algebra class or something similar that especially if a student is on like a business pathway or a STEM pathway, a pathway through college that has specific math requirements, they will never be offered that financial algebra class as an elective because the pre-calc will take priority or whatever in that pathway. Also, I should say I was a college advisor for 10 years, so that's a part of my background on this too.
May jump in. Thank you so much for that. It looks like we have some hands raised for people who might want to comment.
I think Peggy was there first.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just have a quick question regarding, you mentioned like financial aid applications and, all of the, sessions that they offered to help get kids ready. I have found, having had 4 kids go through college, that even the very last, they get very, very little help understanding how to navigate, registration, financial aid, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, now
We're
that we've
back. Are we back in our group?
yes, we've come back all together now, both groups all joining back together. And sorry if any conversations were interrupted. We're going to pick back up and continue. So would love to just come together and share some highlights from your group conversation, or if anyone didn't get the chance to share a thought that they wanted to, would open it up to you all.
I like to push my group. They were having some really good conversations. about the different definitions. So if anyone who was with me wants to share, that would be amazing.
Which group was that?
So Sean, Lisa, Deb, and I'm looking at other folks here. Deb, Eric, we're part of my group. Pam.
I think Deb was talking in the middle and got cut off.
Deb, would you like to finish your thought here?
We'll also pull the Padlet back on screen for a moment in case anyone sees an idea that they wanted to highlight or elaborate on, or give another viewpoint on. Would encourage you to look through these and see if there's anything else you wanted to elevate or share from your discussion.
I think one of the things that my group covered was critical thinking and relevant media literacy skills that go along with that. And going through the Padlet answers, I see a lot of critical thinking answers as well. So that was something that was good to see.
Thank you. Okay. Maybe one more comment, maybe someone from the other small group, if you'd like to share a highlight from the discussion.
Yeah, John, as a student, if you feel comfortable, I'd urge you to share with the larger group so that others can hear from you.
No problem. One thing I took away was I can't remember his name. He was the advisor who was talking about some of the things that were missed when it comes to students and all the things they have to handle, like applications and thinking about the future, and how like classes that are taught about, taxes and stuff are seen as important, but the rate of the students attending is like half of how much should be because like if you're going down a specific path like STEM or bio, like some courses are taken that involve a little bit of like economics that you need to know, but is more heavily like centered around, okay, you need to learn bio more than economics itself that could help you longer into the future. So I thought that was an interesting topic that I didn't really think about.
Awesome, thank you. And I see the comment in chat about I'm going to scroll through these as well for folks who, if it helps see it on screen. So I'm just going to scroll through them. We'll take one more minute doing this, and then we can move on to the next set of questions. But if anything stands out to you or you want to chime in while I'm scrolling through these, feel free to do that.
I think that something that I thought of as we were talking about the financial literacy issue was I think that people of all kinds need to have some training on how to ask good questions. That's really coming to mind just listening, and the fact that only half of the students chose to participate in that financial learning opportunity. They didn't know what they didn't know, essentially. And I think that training can happen really early, and it is a significant part of critical thinking, absolutely. But a lot of it is what's a good question and how not to fear asking any kind of question. I mean, I don't know how we can instill fearlessness, but I think that having that fearlessness and the confidence to be able to ask good questions is essential.
Awesome.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Jeanne, I see that by your name you're a PhD graduate. I was wondering what your PhD was in.
Communications and journalism.
Oh, okay.
So I love to teach people how to ask good questions. That's my favorite thing to teach.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. We're going to dig a little deeper now with our next set of questions here. So we'll go back into small groups and you'll probably be shuffled up a little bit. And the question now is along the same lines, but digging more specifically into what it means to be ready. So what knowledge, skills, and experience do students need to be ready for success? And we'll break it into the 4 components that are part of our diploma purpose in state law. So specifically, what do they need to be ready for success in terms of ability to pursue education beyond high school? Their readiness to secure meaningful work, their role and participation in their community, and their ability to continue growing and learning throughout life. And this has a new Padlet link that will bring up a new board to enter your notes on. So you can use the link or the QR code to get there. And we'll go back into small groups again and then return just like we did now to share out.
I really appreciated what you had to say.
I'm going to put the Padlet link into the chats here.
All right, so oh, you're sharing your screen. Okay. Sorry. So wanted to just give a minute or so for folks to sit with these questions, maybe jot down some notes in here, and then we can pull it back together and start discussing as a group what is top of mind for you when you're looking at these questions. Curious if anyone has any thoughts that are coming to mind that you'd like to share with others. There's always beauty in engaging in conversation with one another to really see what we can pull out from that. And Jaylee and I can be taking some notes in the Padlet as well as you all are discussing.
For me, I work at Stevens Elementary in Spokane, Washington. So I work with a lot of students of trauma and high poverty. I'm their music teacher. Um, and for me, I think it's really important that kids understand what they need to have to do what they want to do. Like, I have kids who want to become chefs. So, what does that actually look like? Then I have kids who want to go to college, and what does that look like? What does that actually mean for them? And more than that, how are you a whole person beyond your job? A lot of my students see their parents, and their parents' a whole identity is parent and person working at a job because they have to work two or three of them to survive. And it would be nice for kids to have a sense of what it takes to be a person and have an identity that is not just wrapped up in what you contribute, but is wrapped up in what you want to be.
Did that land with you all as you think about what students need to be gaining in order to be a full person outside of high school?
It makes sense. I appreciate that he mentioned the whole person aspect. So my contribution on the Padlet was about that they need information about all the avenues and options that are available, like whether that's traditional or otherwise, and how that might fit each individual person, because not everyone is going to have, the resources or the desire to do, traditional college. And then, of course, you get to college, how do you get a job after that? Because you're sort of floating in the breeze there sometimes. So just basically more information about, all avenues that they can pursue as they become adults.
I kind of think that anything that they can explore before they're out of school, before they're out of high school, whether it's visiting other businesses, like Sean said, if they want to be a chef, whether there can be a way that they can visit chefs or have chefs come in and talk to them about what it entails. I think more community engagement might be important.
I mentioned that I don't know how to teach this, but I think it'd be wonderful if they had the security in their own beings to not be afraid to try things and not be afraid to fail. And I guess they learn that from other people who come in and tell them, guess how many times I failed before I found out what I wanted to do. I know that I love telling that to my students. You're not going to believe how many times I picked the wrong career and how much I learned from picking the wrong career. So not being afraid to fail. I don't know how to inject that into people, but it'd be lovely if we could.
Well, and I think part of that is developing spaces in which failure is not only okay, but it's celebrated. And so, I mean, again, I'm a music teacher, so I have a viewpoint on this clearly. But like, I teach my kids to fail all the time and to make mistakes, and the idea that a whole life is a process, not a goal. And so, learning through the process of that. And I think one of the struggles I have when I look at where our high schools are is we emphasize such high risk, high stakes things that kids learn from that failure is an endpoint. And so if they do fail, then they have a spot where they feel like they're done because they took this test and they didn't succeed, or they went into AP and they didn't get the score, or they went to college and they were told that college was the goal and then they didn't get the goal. And I think having more spaces where our kids can be successful in failure and learn that failure is not an endpoint, I think is an important thing to have. It's part of why I like things like I like the Finnish systems of education where there's a lot more opportunity for exploration and trying out things and getting it wrong and then trying it again and all of that.
Yeah, if I can add to that a little too, I agree. And I'm here in a role as a parent, and I have a disabled child. And I think what I see with education, what's challenging for him and other students like him, is that the system itself is built for him to fail, right? And for a lot of students like him to fail. And the feedback is often failure. So when we talk about like, how do you want to see success? It's kind of difficult when the system is constantly telling them that they're failures and the feedback is that. So even before they're getting to this point, the system needs to be different in the way that they provide feedback around, what success looks like, even in the school setting as a child, as they're developing. And so that's part of how I see like the system needing changes in order for us to like kind of model what we believe around success and failure and how to teach kids how to move through the world. We can't, I don't know if I'm making sense, but the feedback has to be different too.
Pam, I love that. And I teach freshmen in college, and I actually want to noodle on that word of meaningful and what messages are conveyed early on about what's meaningful work. And I know that when students come to me, a lot of the meaningful is really based on wage, right? It's really based on how much money I'm going to make. And it takes so much time to undo that and think about meaningful, like what does the world need? Like, what do you love to do? What does your community need to be like collectively successful in the future? So I think this like systemic messaging to our students that happens throughout K through 12 and then like really solidifies by the time they're high school graduates is something that like I really would love to see change in this sort of like next round of visioning high school graduates in Washington.
And this might be getting ahead, but like the idea of, I mean, elementary at my district does standards-based grading, so it's based on whether or not you're meeting the goal, whether or not you're working towards it, with the highest grade not actually being achievement. Sorry, my cat's really crazy right now. It's not being achievement is not the highest goal. Achievement is the goal, and then you have that step above that you can go for if you need it. And it's never encouraged to be that higher thing unless that's what you want, because the goal is always here. And so I don't understand. Frankly, I don't understand why high school can't do that. Why they can't have the thing be portfolio based, and why it can't be growth model based, and why it can't be achievement based and not ends means based. And so I understand our system was based off of a competitive system, and I understand that universities look at it as a competitive system when they're bringing people in, but that's not how the world works, and that's not how jobs work. Like if I do a bad job at my job, right, I'm not immediately fired. And when we give kids F's because they do badly on like a test or two, then we're telling them that failure is immediate problem. And so giving more chance to recorrect and change is, I don't know.
What you said made me realize that that's why there is such a huge burst of applicants for business schools now. The departments of business in almost every college is just growing with leaps and bounds. And it's because everybody's looking at that dollar sign at the end, and they're thinking, this is where I can make the dollar sign as I go into business, right? I go to business school. So exactly, we have produced what we made.
And then when they hit accounting 201 and they fail because that's not their driver in life, that's not what they're passionate about. Going back to what Sean said, they think they weren't cut out for it, right? College wasn't for them when actually they weren't meant to be a business major. They didn't get enough time to reflect and think deeply around what they needed to contribute to the world. And so, yeah.
So, hi everyone. Everyone hopefully in the room knows how to do Padlet now, and just looking at the questions, like our group did last time, feel free to fill them in, and then we can begin discussion whenever you're ready to do so. Thank you.
While they're filling them in, I see that your back screen has the Washington State Board of Education. Do you work specifically for them or okay,
Yes.
and I was
I'm
wondering what your role was or what mainly do you like focus and work on?
I'm the tribal liaison and community engagement coordinator.
Okay. So do you usually like facilitate like meetings like this all the time where you try and like gain like flesh out and like explain what exactly some of these like activities that you guys do are?
To my first webinar, but I'm pretty new to the
Oh, okay.
board.
Also, good questions, John. Went ahead and share my screen. So in the event, it makes it easier for everyone to share their thoughts. I'm more than happy to be taking notes and you all can start having the conversation.
So the first section was more on success, and now we want to switch to readiness. What does it mean to be ready?
The question is ready for what? Ready to advance into adulthood?
Well, ready to pursue education beyond high school is the first question. And then in the second question, and you can find them down here on the Padlet is the copy of the discussion questions. The second one is what students need to be ready to secure meaningful work out after high school. And then what do students need to be ready to have a role and participate in their community?
For the first and third question, I think what generally I see my peers and everybody doing who's also gone to higher education and those who didn't take the step was someone said confidence, which I think is actually pretty important because I'm a firm believer that at any like degree at any age is something anybody should be able to do. But a lot of factors go into if you're being able to go back. But I think another thing is just like any other any other like grade level, you're now choosing to do it by yourself, so that takes another level of commitment. Like you can't just go into higher education not at least knowing where you want to land. So I think that's something that would like make students ready to pursue higher education, which is why the saying, not everybody should go to college. It's because your pursuits could be somewhere else. Higher education isn't always the route, but if you think about it, then I think and you see that higher education is a route, it's something you can take. And for the role and participation in community, I found clubs to be a great way, but clubs weren't really that huge in high school or anything like that, unless you were like intently involved. It wasn't really pushed. It was just there. So, but in universities and stuff like that, clubs are a lot bigger. There's a lot more resources. There's a lot more community in clubs. So you see it being a great way to find a community, build a community, understanding how to work with a community, and part, just being part of it is a big difference.
You so much. And I believe we're at like a 1 minute warning. I think we were going to come down. I just wanted to make sure that no one got cut off, but I believe we have time for one or two more. And it looks like we don't have anything under what it means to secure meaningful work. And the Padlet will be open until the end of this meeting altogether. And so if you had moments to think about what it meant, please feel free to either
Well,
say it here or type in. Yeah.
literacy and communication skills are extremely important. I've talked to a lot of employers and kids who can't read, believe it or not. Cursive has been coming up more and more recently. Someone leaves a note in cursive instead of printing their kids. I really think they would be more ready. I'm saying basic math, meaning addition, multiplication, and simple division, very solid in basic mathematics. Doesn't have to be algebra, doesn't have to be geometry, but basic math skills are become a real crisis, I'm afraid. lack thereof. And a kid who doesn't have these is very anxious.
Thank you. Then I went ahead and put it on the palette. Thank you for that. Maybe one more really quick. I can go ahead and type it.
Yeah. I think we have 5 more minutes. I just went and checked the time to see what it was. Sorry, everyone.
I have another suggestion. I don't know what's available on your pull-up list. I think some kids are a little confused about the ability to look something up online and developing real knowledge. There seems to be some misunderstanding of what knowledge is these days. Say, I could go to the internet and look that up. Why should I learn it? And I think there's real joy in learning, becoming knowledgeable, becoming solid in things. And I think personally, I feel that the best foundation is laid in elementary. This is my in my 70s. And I coached math, I coached knowledge bowl, and I found that the kids who did better later in their K-12 education had a really solid elementary. They got their foundation in elementary. It's very hard to catch up. Very hard to catch up later.
Thank you for that. I know, thinking about readiness and wondering how these graduation requirements have created students who are ready. And I was just wondering if anyone had some thoughts about their own students navigating or being a student yourself navigating the graduation requirements that we have.
Well, I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but I have a couple of friends who have taught, who are professors, and they tell me that they have to spend a lot of time doing remedial work. One of my friends is a professor of chemistry, and another one teaches in law. And both of them find that there are a lot of kids who they spend actually a fair amount of time in their first year, both in junior colleges and at university doing remedial work. Has the Department of Education surveyed the professors?
So we are not the Department of Education. We're the State Board of Education. So we are actually housed within OSBI, but we do have a different level of responsibilities and statutes. Part of this task force is a group of stakeholders across the state that do include some teaching experience, some individuals from the workforce development, and then as well as conducting through these listening sessions, really just hearing about what the community thoughts are on this. So technically, we have not thought of the possibility of serving specific teachers per se, but it's still in development. So I think this is more like for this specific session, we wanted to see and dig deeper into what students need or how does it look like for them to be successful after high school graduation. We are going to be developing recommendations on what my high school graduation speak, but this is not, we wanted to make sure that we laid the vision with this community listening sessions first before digging into that deeper.
Oh, what was the question that you guys brought up that Miss Baker answered? I was listening and I forgot.
It was a question regarding Anna, do you mind resharing the question that you asked about graduation?
Sure. And maybe I just asked like what the personal experiences people had with graduation requirements as they are now. And then I see Rosemary also has her hands raised. So that was the question, John. It was just like, who has, does someone want to share? And feel free if you have your hands raised. It looks like there's Donovan and Rosemary and John, if you wanted to answer as well.
Oh, I'll let them go first. I've been.
I was going to say, I think like they have running start for students, that are, I guess, doing well. It's going to end in 58 minutes. Okay, I'll be quick. That are getting college credits. I just think I'm teach the GED in a correctional facility. And I just think that'd be great to have that the other way around, like for kids who are struggling, like internships or apprenticeships, because some students, I don't know, it's just they need real world. So a lot of school is not real world. Even the math, a lot of that math you could use have real world problems. Like I'm trying to implement this. It's called citizen math, and so that's my thing. I agree with Donovan and John and all that. So I just wanted to say more non-traditional opportunities and kind of think outside the box for some kids in school.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're all coming back together here. And again, it sounds like there were some really robust conversations happening in both small groups, and you might have gotten cut off a little bit. We have one activity to get to at the end, so we just wanted to save time for that. But before we do, if we could hear just a couple of thoughts from each group, or if you wanted to wrap up, if you were in the middle of saying something, you could do that as well.
Our group talked a lot about the need to give students spaces to fail and be successful at failing, and to understand that failure is not the end point of a thing, that life and jobs and work and school are a process. So you can't have the failure be the thing that defines what you do and where you go. The failure is just a part of it.
Thank you. I see Peggy has raised a hand.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't before because for some reason or other it froze up on me. But I wanted to add, the phrase meaningful work kind of bothers me because I think all work may have some meaning, may have some value. And if somebody finds themselves stuck in a job that they don't feel is fulfilling, it doesn't make it necessarily unmeaningful. So, and for the guy before was talking about failure, they may feel like a failure if they're stuck in a job that they feel is not fulfilling. So I think we need to build resilience in for that. And somebody at a previous session had also mentioned that kids coming out of college oftentimes feel entitled to walk into a better position than what they get. And that's the expectations and the ability to handle disappointment. I think that also needs to be, realistic expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Saw a lot of folks showing through body language signs of support with that. So it sounds like that resonates for several. Any other viewpoints before we move on to the next activity?
Can I just quickly throw out so one of the things that always kind of gives me pause when I'm looking through these requirements or these, the verbiage used is we always refer to it as post-secondary education, which I feel does commonly perpetuate the college is for everyone and college pathway is for everyone option. Whereas instead of something like post-secondary training, where we highlight things like apprenticeships, on-the-job training opportunities, the acknowledgement of the community college system. I personally spent 10 years as an advisor and a recruiter in the community college system here in Washington, prior to now jumping in the K-12 world. And so that is something that I have seen consistently over like 13 years of my career, is students still feeling like, well, the only option is I need to go to college because that's what everybody told me I have to do. It's definitely gotten better, don't get me wrong. But in fact, one of my biggest things that I do in my job currently is promotion of apprenticeships to students in our region. So I feel like I'm kind of on the front lines for that one, so I figured I'd throw that out there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we will keep that Padlet open a little bit longer. But in our last 10 minutes here, we wanted to shift to one final activity, which is going to be our Menti word cloud. So this is to get at ideal qualities. And this is not about the topics or skills or subject areas, but rather descriptive words. So how would you want to describe the graduation requirements of the future? What words or qualities do you hope will describe graduation requirements in the future? So completing this sentence, ideally graduation requirements would be, and then fill in your adjective. So you can get to the Menti through the link, or you can go to their website and enter the code, or we have a QR code option. So hopefully you can find your way there. If you have trouble though, you're welcome to call out your words or put them in chat. And it may take 1 minute to launch it. I think Ariel, is it you're launching the Menti?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's launched.
Awesome. Okay, so take a moment to do that, and then we'll be able to share the word cloud on screen.
So the topic right now is specifically which specific areas?
No, so not we're not looking for subject areas or topics or skill. Like it's not what you want them to learn in the grad requirements, but what qualities. So how would you describe the graduation requirements of the future using adjectives? So as a set of grad requirements, for example, do you want them to be, I don't want to influence the answers, but like challenging or flexible or whatever, adjectives, how would you want to describe them as a set?
Got it.
Right, so I believe everyone should be able to see the word cloud popping up. Looks like a lot of student-centered and growth-based. I think that definitely goes to some of the conversations that were being had and what was captured in the Padlet about really wanting to give students opportunity to explore and fail and grow. And definitely getting a strong sense of the media literacy, ability to ask questions, and really think critically and engage in critical conversation with each other. I'm assuming not. Are any of these words surprising to anybody?
I hate to harp on this, but I think that a kid that gets, I think the more the earlier a kid can develop confidence at grade level, can achieve, if they're identified, if they have any issues, if they're not keeping up. I think, how can I put it? You say things like student-centered. Of course, it's student-centered. Every student fills a seat, and I think there are certain, I think quizzes and testing can be very positive uh, and build confidence. Kids feel good about the knowledge that they're acquiring as they acquire it. I wouldn't want to advance. I wouldn't say hold anyone back. My own son was actually he advanced quite quickly and skipped grades twice, which was always a difficult thing to deal with. Getting the help the kids need to stay at grade level will build their confidence, and then they can ask questions, and they can just. I still think kids are immature, and even in their teens, I think expecting kids to plan to take on too much, to make too many choices too soon may actually lead to failure. I'm a little concerned about that. So I think keeping those grade level standards, keeping kids on track early and consistently, they'll have fewer behavior problems. I think they'll have more respect for what knowledge is, and feel that they're sailing their own ship. I think I can't overstress how important that is. Like say, the professors that I've spoken with said that there were kids that didn't understand ratio. That is to say, they didn't understand fractions. In other words, one half, one third, or things like that. College freshmen who still didn't have their heads wrapped around fractions. I think a high school graduate could or should, I don't know if the state is testing, is there an actual a test required for graduation? Um, I'm a little out of date. Being in my 70s, my son is in his 50s. Um, I'm from Pennsylvania. We actually took some like board. There was actually some testing done in order to graduate. It wasn't just a person who's had so many hours of civics or history or English. I mean, we actually took some tests. Anybody want to inform me about that?
I'm pretty sure tests are still being taken to this day in high school. Even when you take a course in high school, you will be tested on the knowledge in that course. So I think there's enough testing, but I'm more so concerned about like the fact that not everybody gets tested the same way. So it's more so, I would think, an issue on how can you make tests fair, but when we've been doing it for so long and we know there's a lot of problems with it. So it comes to the question that like maybe testing in and of itself after a while of putting kids through it rigorously is just something that needs to be changed. But at the same time, I agree that testing is uh, one of the like most used ways and works if you have the right methods in how you go about preparing for them.
Well,
But then,
my point is this. If a kid who's
Mhm.
graduating from high school can't divide 15 by 2, then I don't think that kid is ready for anything. I mean, in terms of making change in a window, or taking chemistry or a lot of things. And I'm just wondering what kind of um I think I don't think that that's a even as someone who understands music and art, these are the ability to divide a number in half is
Sorry,
something
Deb.
that you use in the arts as well as chemistry and science.
Deb, sorry, I'm gonna have to cut in because I see that we are at our time. If folks can hang on, I saw Peggy was waiting with her hand for a while there. Would love to give Peggy the opportunity to give a closing thought, and then we will wrap up the session.
I think what Ms. Baker was saying, is there an exit exam? And I think that's the idea is, an exam.
Yeah, the current graduation requirements, the state delinked the state's standardized test as an exit exam and replaced it with the graduation pathway options. So there are different assessments and demonstration options for how students can show that they're ready for success. And it's a menu of options, which include a lot of different test-based options as well as advanced course options and other, there's a military pathway, there's different, a career and technical education course sequence, for example. So they're supposed to align with the students' goals for their next steps after high school.
Actually, the other thing I wanted to interject, and I didn't, is I've heard from a couple of students, and these are academically, gifted students, accelerated students, that say the high school and beyond plan is a little bit stressful because they don't know what they want to be going forward, and so they'll just put any old thing down, and it isn't really that helpful. So how would you answer to that? How would you zero in on helping people? Because the high school and beyond plan, if there's no revisions to that, I figure there will probably be a number of other students that have the same concerns.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And there's definitely more to come on high school and beyond plans. So please do follow along. And if we hope you will come for future opportunities as well. We've got the link in chat to sign up for the newsletter. And if you have any feedback for us, we'd love to hear from you as well. Thank you all for providing your input today and have a great evening.
Ms. Schultz, before you head off, I'm a friend of Miranda Hine, who works with the Washington Arts Walk. And she couldn't make it tonight. She was trying to get on, but she had something come up. Both her and I are very interested in trying to get some arts people onto your task force for what's coming up. So I know she's brought this up, but I thought since I have you face to face, I would also bring that up as well. So I don't know if you're the right person to ask. I thought I'd
No,
bring
that's a great question. We're getting a lot of interest in the task force. Let me follow up with you. The task force is pretty well set at this point, but there's going to be layers to it. And so there are going to be, there's probably a lot of ways to plug in. So I'd love to follow up with you. If I can put my email address in chat here, if that works.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Miranda has my email.
Yeah.
Chatted with her before.
Yeah, Miranda and I are both over here on the west side or east side. I'm with the I'm with WMEA as well. So I'm advocacy chair with WMEA. So thought I would pop in my voice into this as well. So
yes, thank you. Thank you so much
for being here. I really appreciate you.
You too. Have a great evening.